What if I told you that a man who went undrafted and stocked shelves in a grocery store would one day win a Super Bowl and lead the greatest show on turf? In 1994, every NFL team passed on Kurt Warner and he went undrafted. 31 teams looked at him and said, "No thanks." But what those teams didn't know was they were about to witness something that would rewrite the rules of football forever. This is not just another underdog story. This is the story of Kurt Warner. His journey from going undrafted in the NFL draft to Hall of Fame quarterback is the most improbable thing that has ever happened in professional sports. Frenzies, let's dive in. Kurt Warner was born in Burlington, Iowa, back in 1971, into the kind of situation that doesn't produce NFL quarterbacks. His parents divorced when he was young, leaving his mother to work 2 part-time jobs, but in the midst of the poverty that defined his early life, Kurt found something that gave him hope: football. Kurt was convinced that he was destined for something that seemed absolutely impossible given his circumstances. He would tell anyone that would listen that he was going to play in the NFL someday. It didn't matter that his family was on food stamps. It didn't matter that they could barely afford to keep the lights on. Kurt believed with every fiber of his being that football was going to save him. But unlike what you'd find with most kids out there, Kurt didn't want to be quarterback. He wanted to be a wide receiver like his heroes Drew Pearson and Tony Hill. The only problem was his high school team had absolutely nobody willing to try out for quarterback. So his coach lined up every player and told him to throw the ball as far as they could. Kurt threw it the furthest, and just like that, his coach told him he was the new quarterback. Kurt went home that night and cried because he was convinced his coach had just destroyed his dream of playing in the NFL. But his coach, a man named Padlock, had something special planned for Kurt, something that would either make him or break him completely. It was called the Kill Kurt drill, and it was exactly what it sounded like. Kurt had to stand in the pocket while his teammates tried to demolish him, and he wasn't allowed to throw the ball until the coach blew the whistle. No matter how many guys were coming at him, no matter how close they got, he had to stand there and take it. Week after week, practice after practice, Kurt got absolutely destroyed by his own teammates. What Kurt didn't realize was that this torture was creating something inside him that would become legendary: the ability to stand in the pocket under impossible pressure and deliver perfect strikes. But that revelation was still years away. Right then, all Kurt knew was pain. By senior year, Kurt lit up Iowa high school football and earned Gateway Conference Player of the Year. College scouts were finally paying attention, but when he visited his dream school, the University of Iowa, Coach Hayden Fry walked right past him to shake hands with another recruit. He ended up at Northern Iowa with a partial scholarship, spent 3 years on the bench being told he wasn't good enough in practice, and finally got one magical senior season where he threw for over 2,400 yards. For the first time in his life, NFL scouts were actually watching Kurt Warner play football. But when the 1994 NFL draft arrived, Kurt's name never got called. Not in the first round, not in the 7th round, not at all. He went completely undrafted, with every single NFL team passing on him. Just when he thought his NFL dream was completely over, the Green Bay Packers offered him a tryout. Kurt was so confident he'd make the team that he prepared to give his all. But when the coaches called his number for a drill, Kurt did something brutally honest. He told him he wasn't going in because he didn't know what he was doing yet. That honesty would get him cut from the team the very next day. With that, Kurt moved into his girlfriend Brenda's parents' basement and took the only job he could find: stocking shelves at a Hy-Vee's grocery store from 10:30 p.m. to 5:30 a.m. for $5.75 an hour, wondering if football was over forever. But then, a team called the Iowa Barnstormers called Kurt and asked if he wanted to play arena football. Now, if you've never seen arena football, it was basically regular football played in a phone booth. The field was tiny, the walls were close, and guys were flying all over the place getting destroyed. Kurt's first instinct was to laugh. He told himself he was so much better than arena football. But then they told him he could make $800 per game, plus a $1,000 bonus for wins. Kurt did the math quickly. That was more money than he was making at the grocery store, and with that, he began his professional football career with the Iowa Barnstormers, wearing a helmet with weird goggles and playing football in what amounted to a hockey rink. And for 3 years, Kurt got destroyed in a hockey rink wearing goggles, developing into the toughest quarterback alive. But then, out of the blue in 1998, Kurt got a phone call from the St. Louis Rams saying they wanted him to come in for a tryout. In 1998, Clerk got his chance with the St. Louis Rams, his last shot at age 27, which was ancient by rookie standards. What immediately set him apart from every other tryout was showing up knowing every play in their playbook while other guys were still learning the basics. The Rams put Clerk through the most brutal tryouts they'd ever conducted, wanting to see if this arena football quarterback would crack. Instead, Clerk made their first-string defense look like they were in slow motion. Dick Vermeil watched Clerk destroy practice after practice and realized this grocery store clerk might be the most talented quarterback he'd ever seen. But Vermeil needed to test Clerk's character. During a run drill, when the center snapped the ball badly and Clerk never touched it, Vermeil screamed at Clerk for 30 seconds for dropping the ball. Clerk took the abuse without arguing and asked what he needed to do better. That's when Vermeil knew Clerk was special. Clerk made the team but was still a backup. The Rams had big plans for starter Trent Green, a high draft pick with NFL experience who was supposed to lead them back to respectability. Clerk was supposed to hold clipboards and hope for garbage time. Then preseason arrived, and everything shattered. Rodney Harrison destroyed Trent Green's knee with a vicious hit. The Rams franchise quarterback was done for the year, and their backup was a grocery store clerk from small-town Iowa. Vermeil called a press conference and actually started crying. He told the media the Rams would rally around Kurt Warner, but you could see he thought the season was over. Vegas immediately made the Rams one of the worst teams in football. Everyone except Kurt Warner thought the season was over. Kurt walked into that first game against the Baltimore Ravens, one of the best defenses in the NFL, knowing every person in America expected him to fail spectacularly. Instead, he threw for over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, setting the stage for a historic season. Then he did it again the week after that. Kurt Warner threw multiple touchdown passes in each of his first 3 starts, a rare feat for an undrafted agent in the NFL. But that was just the beginning of what was about to become the most insane season any quarterback ever had. The real test came when the San Francisco 49ers visited St. Louis. The Niners had beaten the Rams 17 straight times. They'd owned the Rams so completely that most people considered it an automatic win. But when Kurt got on that field, he threw 5 touchdown passes and demolished them so badly that the entire football world collectively had their jaws on the floor. Even Sports Illustrated put Kurt on their cover with the "Who is this guy?" But this, as impressive as it was just the tip of the iceberg. By the end of the season, Kurt had thrown 41 touchdown passes, the highest that season. The Rams had the best record in the NFC, and Kurt Warner was about to lead them into the playoffs. But the playoffs were where dreams went to die, and Kurt was about to face the biggest test of his life. The question wasn't whether he could play in the regular season anymore. The question was whether a guy who had been stocking shelves 2 years earlier could handle the pressure of the NFL playoffs. The answer to that question would shock the entire sports world. The St. Louis Rams entered the playoffs as the number 1 seed in the NFC, but nobody really believed in Kurt Warner yet. Sure, he'd had a great regular season, but this was the playoffs. This was where real quarterbacks were made, and Kurt was still seen as a feel-good story who was about to get exposed. The Minnesota Vikings came to St. Louis for the divisional round, and they had one of the best defenses in football. They were physical, they were fast, and they were convinced they were going to knock Kurt back to the grocery store where he belonged. Instead, Kurt threw 5 touchdown passes and beat the Vikings so badly it wasn't even competitive. Then, in the NFC Championship game against Tampa Bay, with a trip to the Super Bowl on the line, Kurt did something that defined his entire career. With less than 5 minutes left and the Rams trailing, Kurt took a hit that would have hospitalized most quarterbacks. He got up slowly, looked at his receivers, and threw a perfect touchdown pass to tie the game. Then, in the final minutes, the Rams defense sealed the victory and sent the Rams to the Super Bowl. The entire football world was now paying attention to Kurt Warner, but they were about to see something that would blow their minds completely. When the Super Bowl arrived 2 weeks later, Kurt Warner was about to face the ultimate test of whether a grocery store clerk truly belonged on the biggest stage in sports. The first half seemed to prove Kurt belonged. He threw touchdown passes like he was playing catch in his backyard, building a commanding 16-0 lead. The Rams looked unstoppable, but then Kurt took a brutal hit to his ribs so hard that he began struggling to breathe. At halftime, Kurt was lying on the training table, doctors asking if he could continue. Kurt gave them an answer that would echo through NFL history. He didn't care what was broken. He was finishing this game. The Titans rallied in the second half, and with just over 2 minutes left, they tied the game 16-16. Suddenly, the greatest underdog story in sports history was about to end in heartbreak. Kurt Warner had come this far, only to lose on the biggest stage in the world. But Kurt looked at Isaac Bruce and told him exactly what was about to happen. He told Bruce he was coming to him on the next play, and Bruce better be ready. Then Kurt dropped back. He saw the safety creeping up and threw a perfect strike to Bruce, who took it 73 yards for the game-winning touchdown. And with that, Kurt Warner had just won the Super Bowl, the NFL MVP award, and the Super Bowl MVP award in the same season. A grocery store clerk from Iowa had just accomplished something that had seemed impossible 12 months earlier. By 2008, Kurt was 37 years old and playing for the Arizona Cardinals, a franchise with a long history of struggles. The Cardinals hadn't won a championship since 1947. They were so bad that most people forgot they existed. But Kurt led the franchise to the playoffs, then to the NFC Championship game, then to Super Bowl 43 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. The game came down to the final minutes, and Kurt threw a touchdown pass to Larry Fitzgerald that gave the Cardinals the lead with just over 2 minutes left. Kurt Warner, the man who had been told he wasn't good enough for Northern Iowa, was about to win his second Super Bowl championship, but the Steelers scored with 35 seconds left, and Kurt's comeback fell just short. The Cardinals lost, but Kurt had proven something that transcended winning and losing. He had proven that talent wasn't everything, that perseverance mattered more than pedigree, and that sometimes the most impossible dreams were the ones worth chasing. In 2017, Kurt Warner was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. The grocery store clerk from Iowa was now officially one of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history. But the most incredible part of Kurt's speech wasn't what he said about football. It was what he said about the people who believed in him when no one else would. Kurt Warner's story proved that the NFL didn't have a monopoly on recognizing talent. It proved that sometimes the greatest players came from the most unlikely places. And it proved that if you're willing to stock shelves at a grocery store to keep your dream alive, you might just shock the entire world. Because that's what Kurt Warner did. He took a dream that everyone said was impossible and made it inevitable. And in doing so, he changed what we thought we knew about talent, perseverance, and the power of refusing to give up. The grocery store clerk became a legend. The impossible became inevitable. And Kurt Warner proved that sometimes the most shocking stories were the ones that actually happened. We'll catch you in the next one, Frenzies.